great big.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to WD Carousel of Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And today we are going to do a battle, a comparison. How are we doing this?
I think it's going to be more of a comparison.
Okay, a comparison. That seems a lot more pleasant than
Yes.
battle.
We don't want to put a, like, because we like both of them, so we don't
That is
really,
very true.
you know, like,
But which
against each other.
one's better?
I don't know. It's so many variables there.
It's objective,
Anyway,
too.
Let's talk about what we're doing
And I'm
first.
sure you've seen it in the episode title
Yeah.
because people get hints there all the time. But today we are going to be discussing the Sherman brothers.
Versus Alan Menken.
And the reason I'm doing is because I'm more familiar with the Sherman brothers.
I'm more familiar with Menken.
So let's just kind of go over them so you understand who the heck we're talking about. If you don't know as much of the background of the Disney production houses and all the different levels and all the different creative people that go into it, these people that we are discussing are primarily on the music side of Disney.
Right.
So we're talking the people who get a song stuck in your head. And these are the two big powerhouses for Disney. Now, the Sherman brothers are early Disney.
Yes.
And by that, I mean they worked with Walt directly, versus Alan Menken.
Who kind of took up the torch after they either retired or were less active.
And he started the Disney Renaissance as well. So both very influential people. We will have samples of music probably interspersed in here. Just little snippets. Don't get mad at us, Disney. But that way you kind of understand these earworms that we're talking about. Because both sets of people really created the songs that you and I, as well as you guys, fell in love with and what made us love Disney.
Absolutely.
It's so much more than just the illustration. It's so much more than just the storyline.
The actors.
These guys are the ones who made Disney popular.
Absolutely.
And so let's just do a little bit of a background on the Sherman brothers first.
All right.
Since we're going to go... Yeah.
All right.
Since
Cheers.
we're going to go a little bit more chronologically.
Seems like a good way to do it.
You know. So the Sherman brothers are obviously two brothers that started out not wanting to really do music, but their dad kind of put down the gauntlet. He was a composer and a musician and was like, oh, I bet you guys can't come up with a catchy song. And they went, well, I want to be a novelist and I want to be a composer. We should put this together. And they did.
Oh,
and
wow.
their dad, basically when they came out with their first song, their dad said, okay, go that way. Hollywood's over there, and sell it. And that's what they did.
What was the song?
I don't remember what that song was.
Okay.
But the song that caught Disney's eye was actually for the Mickey Mouse Club, for the Mouseketeers, specifically Annette.
Okay.
If you remember Annette, and she sang a song they wrote called Tall Paul. And from there, they did a lot of composing for Annette for the Mickey Mouse Club.
Okay.
They ended up writing like 7 songs for her.
Oh, wow.
Which is a huge thing at that time because Annette was only supposed to be on the show for like 5 months more. And then all of a sudden
They extended her.
became a huge thing.
Wow.
They wrote songs that she recorded and actually has records out for.
Oh, wow.
And so they did a really good job on that. And then Walt found them and went, okay, I like what you're doing, but I want to see you do this. And so what had ended up happening is they had been pulled into where we always round back up to, the World's Fair.
Yes.
And he went, I need something for this. I need something for this concept that we're doing. And the concept was...
I think I know what this is. I think it's a small world.
Yeah. And so they came up with all these different versions of a song. They had a complex version. They had a this and that. They couldn't make a decision. And Walt was literally coming at them. And they're like, okay, we're just going to throw the simple one at him. And that's the one that stuck.
Yeah.
It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small, small world.
Yeah.
Because the simple version of It's a Small World can be translated with almost any tone to match the culture that he was going with.
Yeah.
And Walt was so happy with the way that they were able to create and inspire on the spot that he hired them almost immediately after that.
Yeah.
And so they had that one, and then there are other rides from the parks that we're familiar with that they've written songs for, things like the Tiki Room.
Yep.
All together in the tiki 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 room, in the tiki 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 room.
All the birds sing words
And the flowers croon in the tiki 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 room.
A Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, which you hear every time you listen to our podcast.
Don't sue us, Disney.
And then the next thing that happened was Walt decided to hand them a book and said, make this a movie.
Oh, wow.
And what book did they hand? But Mary Poppins. So they have this huge book that has no sense. There's no storyline. There's no actual arc to it.
Right.
And they're like, okay, so we're going to narrow it down to like these 6 chapters.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, we're going to come up with like 5 songs to bring to Disney.
Okay.
And so they bring it to Disney, and Disney goes, that'll work. Because that's about as good of a compliment as you can get from Disney at the time. He doesn't say great, wonderful. He's like, that'll work.
Yeah, that'll do.
And then Disney pulls out his own copy of the book, and he had highlighted the same 6 chapters.
Oh, wow.
With the story. And so they created the whole story as we know Mary Poppins. Now, if you've seen Saving Mr. Banks, which is
kind of a
very
biopic.
Loose
Yeah.
background of the making of Mary Poppins, you see how influential they were in the creation of that movie. And that movie helped gain them their first awards.
Yes.
They won... I think it was 2 Oscars that round, and a whole bunch of other things since then. And Walt ended up doing the same thing with The Jungle Book. Handed them the book, said, make this a movie. And as we all know, that is Walt's final movie that he was on, and said, make it your own. And so they're the ones that came up with the jazz sort of cool, laid-back vibe. And The Jungle Book, as we know it, was born. Now, they also have many other different songs that we are all very familiar with. Hold on. They were New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Gotcha.
So the Winnie the Pooh, Winnie
Yeah.
the Pooh. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
I haven't seen that in a very long time, but I have
love
seen
that movie. That movie is so fun, especially with, Angela Lansbury just
of course.
being the best witch possible. So they did that entire thing. And they are actually known for they're the ones that have wrote the most motion picture movie soundtracks in film history.
Wow.
So that's saying something about these guys. And the nice thing about them is they've always focused on their songs making it a full family song, but when they do that, they write actually up to kids instead of writing down to children, which is a huge thing.
Yeah, and should probably change the kind of paradigm of how people wrote music for children at the time.
Definitely. Because they thought that, if a kid is actually curious, they'll reach out and ask questions. And that's what you want to have for children. You want children to be able to ask questions and learn and grow.
Right.
And so that's what they ended up doing. And they were still working on stuff for years and years and years. They were even part of the Aristocats.
Yes. Yeah.
And then in about 2000 and what was it? 2000, did I say 19 or something? No, not 19. It's not even 2019 yet. But but they had a documentary that came out about them. I said 2009, was it?
2009,
Yeah,
yes.
2009. And at that time, one of the brothers had passed away. The other one's still around. But they have been awarded with a grand total of 2 Academy Awards, 3 Grammys. They were inducted into the Disney Legends in 1990. And they're the only musicians for Disney that have a window on Main Street in Disneyland.
Aw.
So what about yours?
Wow. I thought this was going to be a comparison. So, the reason that I really like Alan Menken is that he's pretty versatile in the stuff that we've seen him in. Like, you know, because he got his start actually in theater, musicals.
Yes.
Which I had the opportunity to do one of his musicals in high school.
Is it the one that's singing in my head right now that you can't hear?
I don't know because it's in your head.
Little
Yes.
shop of horrors, shop to shop.
Little shop of horrors, little shop of terror, little shop of horrors, no.
So that's one of his first. He had one little-known show before that, but his first big show was Little Shop of Horrors, which is absolutely just a wonderful, weird, dark, and funny musical all at once. And that was kind of his first big thing. And it is kind of yes.
Side note on that, did you know his father was a dentist?
No.
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. Let's not unpack that, Alan.
No. Funny though. I love
is
how
funny.
I love how you bring the family in.
Bringing the yeah. So anyway, he kind of started there, and then he jumped into Disney, and I have to remember what the first show was, which you have. Oh yeah. So his very first show with Disney was The Little Mermaid.
Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun, wandering free. Wish I could be part of that world.
Which, you know, has some great songs, and that really kind of sets the scene, because one thing I will say about him, though, is you can always tell when it's an Alan Menken
Yes,
score
you can.
and Alan Menken
Yes,
number.
you can.
It's just everything you hear, you think about the stuff that you get from Little Mermaid, like Part of Your World and Under the Sea and all this stuff, you get that vibe right away. And you can hear those kinds of stuff all through everything that he's done. They all have their own spins, obviously. Like
yes.
Hercules has more of a gospel vibe. You get all sorts of different stuff. Aladdin, you can kind of get that sort of Middle Eastern vibe, kind of that Arabic vibe he tries to kind of throw in there.
Prince Ali, fabulous he, Ali Ababa. Genuflect, show some respect, down on one knee.
He's a very versatile writer.
Yes, but at the same time, you always know it's him, and I've never understood exactly how he does it, but it always has this diverse, everywhere kind of sound, and you always find him, and you can always find, it's like, this is probably Alan Menken, and sure enough, it almost always is. But he's got a great setup of stuff. And now Newsies.
Newsies
is
was
an interesting one for me because
amazing.
Yeah, and it's of course now just a huge phenomenon. I don't remember if this is me being ridiculous, but was it a stage show or a movie first?
I thought it was a movie first, and then they moved it to the stage show.
That sounds right, but the stage show is so popular that I.
But Christian,
Okay, shh, it's okay. She's okay. We'll just give her a minute.
it's okay.
So you get he's really quite prevalent all the way up till now. He's had stuff all the way up. He's got Tangled, which I know Tangled got kind of like overshadowed by Frozen. Oh, I did it again. But honestly though, if you really look at that show as a cohesive thing, it's a way more kind of fun Disney vibe musical with all of its little songs. He's got that, you can always tell, because it's not like the big epic song that always gets popular necessarily, but it's always really solid and
it doesn't
well added to the
have
thing.
one song that
Right,
everybody loves. You can almost, with any of Alan Menken's songs, pick one out and just love it. So there's the damn. Oh,
there's a cricket in here.
There's a cricket in here.
It's fine. We'll just leave that.
I'm just gonna scream, okay? Okay. What I love though is, so he wrote the music for Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
And then when they redid the live version of Beauty and the Beast, they pulled him back in. So those 3 new songs are still Alan Menken songs.
Right.
That he was like, I wanted to include this in the movie, and so we're including it in the movie. So it's not like they got a different composer
to come in and update it. He didn't do the score for Lion King, right?
No.
He didn't even do the score because he does some scores too. Well, Elton John didn't do the score. Did he score it, or did he just do the music, like the songs for it?
I don't know. Hold,
interesting.
please. Little shop of horrors.
Never stop the terror.
Lion King.
No.
Soundtrack.
Oh, it was Hans Zimmer. That's
There
what
you
it was.
go.
Another famous one. He's not.
He's not
He's
as
separate.
good enough to get
He's
on
separate.
this
He's
list
separate.
right
Though
now.
he does a lot of stuff for Disney, but
Yes.
Anyway, not on this list. The other interesting thing was Alan Menken has gotten so popular that he's already kind of parodied himself.
That's true.
And when he's done that, the most prominent example is Gallivant.
Oh my god!
Which isn't not Disney because it's
on
ABC,
ABC.
so it's not Disney. But he does. If you haven't seen Gallivant and you're
You
a fan of
should.
Disney music, you really should because
should.
he worked with a different lyricist, but he did all the music for it and he scored it all out and did everything. And it is just really peak Menken. It's like distilled everything, every trope that he ever did in any show ever, and they just pulled it
Gallivant
down.
is just every trope that
True,
Disney's ever
true,
done ever.
True, and it is a brilliant show, and it's wonderful. Now he's also very well decorated. I don't know that he did quite as well as the Sherman Brothers because
No, he
they had
did
a very
better.
He did better. Oh, he did better. Oh, he
8
sure did.
Academy Awards, 7 Golden Globes, 11 Grammy Awards, 1 Tony, and the Disney Legends in 2001.
Okay, so he was about 10 years later, but you know.
But at that time, they
He
were
was-
also, and I will give this caveat, a little bit of backup to my guys here,
Yeah.
that at that time when the Sherman Brothers were actually getting the awards,
Right.
it wasn't a regular thing for animated movies to get awards. So
Right.
that's why they
Right.
got the award for Mary Poppins. But any of the other movies that they did, the animated movies,
Yes.
they never got credit for.
Because it was highly unusual at the time
But at
to get it.
the time that Menken came around, all of a sudden it was okay to give cartoons these actual accreditations.
Right. And you wrote down a quote here. I'm not going to give myself credit for that because she did that particular piece of research. But he says the line, "I prefer them to be humble."
Which is
It's really-
a great thing.
Yeah, and
I'll let you go.
Yeah, it really kind of embodies his style of because we were just saying this. It's like there's lots of good music from his stuff, but there's not that "Let It Go" that always pops out. You know, that song that comes out and rises above and everyone gets all freaked out about. Everything works really well in the story and stays there. And it nothing gets blown out of proportion. Not one song just becomes the really good one. All the rest of them just kind of work. They all have their own important place in something, and they're important to the story. And in fact, more of his songs get stuck in my head than any, but just not as big. They just all get stuck in my head from like a single show.
It's
So
like you'll all of a sudden play a movie
Yes.
soundtrack in your head, and so you're singing
they're
them all.
they're always his. Like Gallivant, I got the entire soundtrack stuck in my head.
Gallivant,
Yeah.
blah blah blah
And,
blah.
yeah, and
Gallivant.
he does such a good job of that, and he makes it funny, and he's willing to go there and just totally tear his own stuff apart. And I think that I prefer them to be humble really does kind of totally embody his entire set of work because it is really true.
And I also know that he really writes with emotion. He wants
Yes.
his characters to have emotion. And
Yeah.
that was something that the Sherman Brothers did too. They had the 3S motto, which was make it simple, singable, and sincere. So that way you knew that there was going to be a catch to it where
Yeah.
you would actually find the hook, but you connected with it. It was
Yes.
sincere.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were able to really just connect with their audience. And
Yes.
when they wrote for songs for animated characters,
Yeah.
they never thought about the actor who would play it or the illustration for it, but they
Right.
actually created a personality
Right.
for the character, and that's who they wrote to. Just like if they were going to be writing a song for your personality or for
Right.
mine.
Right.
So that
Right.
was a big thing at the time for the Sherman brothers in,
Yes.
you know, the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
to be able to have that connection back to animation and write
Yeah.
for, you know, a
They-
character.
They definitely set the tone for how music and musical style music should work in an animated picture. Because up to that point, and you're looking at other, you know, different groups that have done music in animated stuff, it's either kind of based on it or completely different. But that's the standard that you go with. And like if you think about like the oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of the show. The Toaster.
Brave Little Toaster.
Brave Little Toaster.
Brave Little
I was, you know,
Toaster.
like Little Toaster that could. It was killing me. Just all blending together. But those songs were not at all like standard Disney fare, and they were bizarre and very topical and aged weirdly. But that shows you how, you know, when you don't go that direction, it's not the norm. How much these guys, first the Sherman Brothers and then Alan Menken, really set the stage for how you expect to see this kind of music end up in an animated film.
So then let's take this one step further.
Yes.
So recently, Alan Menken
Mm-hmm.
has paired up with Lin-Manuel Miranda
Mm-hmm.
to remake the Aladdin soundtrack
Okay.
coming up for the live version of Aladdin. Is Lin-Manuel Miranda the next big person to follow in
You
these
know?
footsteps? And why I'm saying that is
Hamilton.
Hamilton,
Yep.
Moana.
Mm-hmm.
And Lin has also had his fingers in other things as well, but
Yes.
he's starting to become even more prevalent within Disney.
yes.
So does that mean that he's going to be the next, possibly?
I actually, it's interesting you bring that up because he thought it was one of the biggest honors of his life to get asked by Disney. So he actually did the music for Moana before Hamilton came out. So his stardom hadn't even fully fledged out yet before the sensation of Hamilton started.
His star.
His start.
Sorry, we're not going to make any Hamilton references.
It's
no,
fine. We're done.
No.
We're done. But even anyway, so his show that he did that caught Disney's eye was In the Heights, which I've never seen, but I've listened to, and it is very good. It's has lots of Spanish. It has lots of interesting kind of concepts showing kind of how a neighborhood that doesn't usually get a lot of light shed on it, kind of how its day-to-day operations go. Real characters, not stereotypes. It's very cool. And so with the rap and everything, so he actually had a co-writer, I believe,
Yes.
for that. But so he came in, and then they were like, "We want you to do Moana," and he was so excited. And I listened to an interview of him on, I think it was NPR, and he said that the thing that really inspired him to kind of be doing the things that he does now, because he listened to old school rap.
Yeah.
And his other favorite,
I like old school rap.
other favorite thing was like the Little Mermaid. So he had a hard time justifying his two connections.
So he's me. 90s hip hop and
90s
rap.
hip-hop and rap.
And Disney, movies. Aw.
And so that really kind of sums him up. And you kind of mentioning that is he going to be the next bearer of the Disney music torch? It might be him.
It might be.
Because,
I'm
yeah.
hypothesizing. That's why I'm
Well,
putting it out here.
And I'm gonna be honest. Now, to be fair, Moana was written by 3 people.
It was.
Not
It
just
was.
Lin. It was also a guy named Mark. Oh, he's gonna slip my mind. Mark Mancini, I believe. Mark Mancini was his name. I'm gonna look this up because I don't want to get it wrong.
Hold,
Please. Because this is important because he...
well, everybody should get credit for the amount of work that they did.
Yeah, and the thing that I feel about it, Mark Mancina, and it's important to bring him up because the other things that he's done, he scored Tarzan, and everyone gives Phil Collins credit for Tarzan.
But it sounds like Phil Collins.
It just sounds like Phil Collins, and if you listen to the actual score pieces at the beginning of Tarzan with the like that kind of tribal drum kind of sounding thing, if you listen to the Moana soundtrack when it first starts at the very beginning, it sounds almost exactly the same. So it's Mark Mancina shows up in some of these where there's like the celebrity that writes part of it. He comes in and will do the actual scoring aspect. He's the guy that kind of makes the creative dream technically true, and he's very talented in his own right, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
I will agree there. I mean, the people who don't come up with the actual, like, obvious songs,
Right.
the background noise.
Yeah, I mean, he has to make Lynn's kind of melody into a score for like a 40-piece orchestra,
Which is a lot of
it's a
bloody
lot.
work.
That's a lot to think about. So I always wanted, whenever I can bring those guys to the front, I like to.
And then they worked with one other guy.
And I'm probably gonna butcher his
He
name.
was an actual Polynesian.
yeah.
So he's the one who brought a lot of the culture
Yes.
and the actual language to the movie as well. So when they were singing, what was it? How Far We'll Go?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
But it starts out with the opening.
His name was I think it's Opatea Foy.
That's better than I would have done.
I'm sorry that I probably butchered that, but he's very famous in a lot of places in like New Zealand. He's from New Zealand.
And he's
He's part of a group
native
called like
group, too.
I think it's called Te Vaka. I think it's the
Yeah,
name of the group.
yeah.
And so they actually came in for some of it too. So a lot of
the background singers and everything.
Yeah, We Know the Way or
Away.
yeah, that whole bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna even
Yes,
attempt to
'cause
sing.
we're gonna go. Yeah, so Moana to me, I think, is actually the next evolutionary step.
Which
of
makes me
Disney
so
music,
happy.
'cause
I will follow that.
I know, because it's so rich and it's so well put together, and I am absolutely okay with having collaborations where it's not just the same people over and over again, but being able to have a guy like Lin-Manuel Miranda, I think, is going to be a great force because he's
Yes.
extraordinarily empathetic, and he is able to do that emotional writing for the characters, because he
Mm-hmm.
wrote How Far I'll Go.
And that's the connection back to all these other guys is they are able to connect with that emotion. They're able
Yes.
to help you feel what those characters are feeling at
Yes.
that time.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
the Sherman brothers started with. That's where Alan took it, and hopefully that's where
Lynn's gonna
Lynn
go.
will be able to make it keep moving in the forward.
Yeah.
Moving in the forward.
Moving in the forward. You heard it here first. Yeah. But yeah, I just want more of those kind of chills you get with those songs when they come
my
in.
gosh.
It's so cool, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for those guys and what they're gonna do.
So what are your favorite songs for the Sherman Brothers and for Alan Menken? I mean, I'd love to hear what you get stuck in your head, your earworms.
Yes.
Is it One Little Spark? That's mine. Most people don't know what that is.
Really?
It's the Figment
I know
movie.
what it
movie?
is.
It's the Figment Ride.
I've heard
Ride.
it. Yeah.
Or is it Chitty Chitty Bang Bang,
Bang.
which is not a Disney movie, but still he wrote it.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, yeah.
Or is it from Hunchback of Notre Dame? Is it from Enchanted? Is it from
Little
any
Mermaid?
of Alan's movies too?
Yeah.
I mean,
Hercules. I mean,
let us know.
I've auditioned with I Can Go the Distance before.
You have?
I have. So anyway,
Were
I've
you
got
on
some-
your way?
I don't even know what to say at this point.
I could go the distance.
Anyway, moving on.
Okay, guys, I'm just
So-
gonna stop. So, thank you for listening / watching WD Carousel of Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And I hope you guys have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Great big beautiful tomorrow. Just a dream